scheduling of the Ann Arbor Public School budget and the state budget are out of sync.
They are, correct.
Do you want to?
Sure. That the school has to have, the school districts have to have their budget approved and in place over the summer, by July. And the state doesn't have to have theirs in place till October. Even though we've already delayed this year, that's always a mismatch. So they will finalize a budget and feel that they have to operate with those funds, whatever's approved in their plan, but it often changes in October. So.
Okay. In June of 2004, the State Senate Fiscal Agency issued a paper, Proposal A, Are We Better Off? A 10-year analysis from 1993-4 through 2003-4. The conclusions. From 94-95 through the next 10 years, the basic foundation grant grew by $1,700 or 34%, while minimum funding level has grown by 60%. The report continues. Proposal A was good for achieving less reliance on state general fund, a big tax savings for homeowners, smaller property tax savings for business, and provided less operating revenue for school districts. Compounding the problem, a report this year by Genesis states that the state tax policy changes have eroded school funding due to tax incentives to business, brownfield exemptions, Renaissance zones, local development funds. The state makes up for these local losses from the school fund. The reaction to these reports, any comments about these reports?
Sure.
Yeah, Christine?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that in 2009, we will spend less homestead, in homestead millages, 45% less than what we spent in 1994. That's a significant number. So in some regard, Proposal A has accomplished what it set out to do, but the net impact is, again, in real dollars, when you take into consideration a 5 to 6% increase in expenses and inflation, and Proposal A, we're at 9% reduced funding than what we had per student in 1994. So that's not setting us up for success or to be competitive and to recruit and retain the best talent here in Ann Arbor.
I'd like to say that
Sure.
Another component of Proposal A was the increase in the sales tax from 4% to 6%.
Yes.
So we're also paying that every time we make a purchase. We were paying, the last year that we have audited numbers, 2008, well, I won't go through all the taxes, but the total cost per pupil, this is basically just operating funds for instruction, support services, community services, was $11,397. Ann Arbor is a world leader in so many areas. We need to be a world leader in developing a sustainable public education model that everyone, every district in the state can afford. And Proposal A addressed some of those equity issues. We're not doing that. We have a structural deficit. We have one in Ann Arbor, we have one statewide. And so we have to stop cutting, and we have to go back and we have to restructure, sort of the way Ford Motor Company did. Ford is in much better shape today than Chrysler and GM, and it's because they didn't just cut, they actually restructured, and that's what we need to do.
Is it within the power of the school, since most of the power really is in the state, and that happened with Proposal A, is it within the power and the ability of the school to really restructure?
Absolutely, and that was done by another district that gets about $2,000 less per student. They spend $2,000 less per student, and that's Grand Blanc, Michigan. And they restructured, and they actually have a collaborative model where their union president and one of their administrators led a restructuring of how they do things. They actually have a 1.5% merit pay that their teachers have received for the last few years. So all of this is possible. And I think that we need to, in the Ann Arbor Public Schools, we need to stop thinking about cutting and think about restructuring. Just one other thing. When our superintendent talks about we're going to take away art class and we're going to take away music class, contractually, the elementary teacher has relief time. Teachers are paid for X number of minutes per week. We would have to raise their salary if we expected them to teach for more minutes per the contract. So we cannot take those extracurricular activities out of the day of the student without an additional impact. So I think that's highly unlikely. And talking about reducing transportation, we discussed that when I was on the board, and one of the problems is that if we did not provide transportation, we would lose many more students than we would save in transportation costs to charter schools.
Okay. You must want to answer some of those.
Sure. Well, just as a case in point, many of these cuts would result in children leaving our school district. We absolutely want to avoid that. I think the other thing is to make good comparisons with schools that are similar to us in both their performance as well as how they're managing their budget. There are a group of schools similar to Ann Arbor, diverse population, university-based town, that are performing similar to Ann Arbor that receive much more school funding per children than we do, more in the $20,000 to $24,000 range versus our $9,723 range. So we think performance, we think competitive advantage are absolutely critical for Ann Arbor, and I think we can all agree that whatever is happening at the state budget is not working. We certainly agree. I think we can come to agree that that needs some significant attention. However, this millage does provide us an option to do something positive and take some local control, which would probably be important to people that want to protect their home values, want their children to stay in these schools, and want Ann Arbor to continue to be a good place to live.
There's one other question that we might have time for. Ann Arbor Public Schools has lost 300 students approximately in the past several years, and in part due to the loss of Pfizer. Yeah. And since we get per pupil payment, we're getting less money. I'm just wondering if the school has any way to bring up the numbers. Do they have any plan?
Well, the real plan is to make sure that Ann Arbor is a great place to be. That's the real plan. And the schools participate in that, our business leaders participate in that, and everyone here participates in that plan. So to the extent that we can protect a high-quality public education system, that helps us quite a bit. Many of our business leaders locally are very much in support of this and would like to to continue to see Ann Arbor be a good place that attracts business and can recruit and retain top talent. So that is the way that we'll grow our student population.
Well, thank you. We're just about out of time now. I want to thank you both, Kathy Griswold and Christine Stead. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
This is one of two programs discussing the November 3rd ballot questions. Check your channel guide for the WISD pros and cons replay times. Thanks for watching, and please write to us with your comments and suggestions. You know, we're always glad to hear other perspectives. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.